Welcome, everyone. This discussion is about an impactful youth initiative bringing together the Muslim and Jewish communities, the Interfaith Living Museum program. The program has been in operation for 19 years. Our goal in discussing the Interfaith Living Museum program is to illustrate how cultivating curiosity and firsthand experience with other cultures at a young age can bridge divides and foster greater understanding between communities. At a time when polarizing along racial, religious, and cultural lines is deepening, programs like this show the powerful impact of transcending one's immediate social circle. By bringing together Muslim and Jewish fifth graders in an immersive, experiential learning environment, the Interfaith Living Museum allows students to satisfy their innate curiosity about each other's traditions and way of life. Rather than learning about the other through a detached lens, they develop personal connections and recognition of our shared humanity. This lays the groundwork for greater empathy, open-mindedness, and cooperation that can reverberate through generations. And walking through the mechanics of how this program operates, we aim to inspire efforts to replicate these bridges of interfaith and cross-cultural dialogue in communities everywhere. The deepening divides in our society will not heal themselves. It takes proactive initiatives like this to expand young people's circles of engagement and understanding from an early age. Joining me today are two leaders instrumental in making this program a reality. Dr. Paul Radensky is the Senior Director of Education and Visitor Services at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Dr. Radensky has a PhD in Jewish history and extensive experience educating youth about their heritage. And Rafeek Mohamed is the principal at Ihsan Academy, a Muslim school that has partnered with the Interfaith Living Museum for many years. Mr. Mohamed is also the head of the Muslim Schools Association. And I am Crystal Mizell. I'm the Associate Director of School and Teacher Programs here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. And I'm excited to dig in. So thank you both for being here. Dr. Radensky, can you start by giving our viewers an overview of how this innovative program works?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Crystal, and thank you for inviting us. And I just wanted to make a little correction that Rafeek Mohamed is also a doctor. So Dr. Mohamed. Anyway, thank you. Sure. So I'll just say a little bit about the history, if I may. And that was about, and when I started here at the museum in 2005, I was asked to work together with the principal of the Islamic Leadership School, Sheikh Musa Drameh, and with his wife, Sharina Drameh, on a program that they had been thinking about to foster dialogue between Jewish students and Muslim students. And we created the Interfaith Living Museum working with them in the Islamic Leadership School. Unfortunately, the Islamic Leadership School was not able to sustain itself after a few years, but one of the many great things that the Dramehs did was they introduced me to Dr. Mohamed, and I've been very fortunate to continue to work with him. It's not been 19 years, but maybe 18 years or 17 years. It's been a long time, which is, by the way, fantastic. So there's usually 6 or 7 sessions to the program. The first session we've met here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and we've learned about what does it mean to study an artifact? What does it mean? How do you learn about a culture through its material items, and specifically about Jewish culture? They're fifth graders that we're working with, so it's not a really deep investigation, but it's hopefully an introduction to get them interested in learning about culture. And we usually have some icebreakers. We have lunch. Then the second session is usually at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and at the Met we go to the Islamic galleries, which are really wonderful and have some fantastic artifacts and art pieces, and we learn about Islamic or Muslim culture. And I should say that both at the Museum of Jewish Heritage and at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, we encourage the students of that culture to share and explain the artifacts. So we encourage it here at the museum, and even more so at the Met. That, for example, we ask. There are like several wash basins, for example, at the Met, and we ask the students to explain, what is wudu and how are these used. Then we have a session where the students bring in their own artifacts, usually to one of the schools. For the last few years, we've been doing it at the Ihsan Academy. There's another session where we make panels that will introduce the galleries, the groups of students and their artifacts. We usually have, we've often gone to a synagogue or a mosque. We didn't do it this year, but most years have gone to a synagogue and mosque, which is always a wonderful and eye-opening experience. One of the high points for the students is what we call the social day, which is really more of a field day. This past year, we went bowling in the Whitestone Lanes, which is if you look at a map, it's about equidistant from the three schools. It's like right in the middle of the three schools. And then this past Monday on June 3rd, we had our exhibition. So all the students brought in their artifacts. The parents came. We had a couple of city council members come. And it was really a very uplifting event. Students, I should say, also make speeches. It's a really inspiring way of concluding the semester of learning that we do together. So I hope I answered the question, and I turn the floor back to you.
Thank you for that overview. And it was really a joy to walk in and see the presentations. So
Thank you.
really cool. All right. I'm wondering, I'm going to put this out on the table. Hopefully Dr. Mohamed has some contribution he wants to give us. Can you walk us through the timeline and key components of the program, if you know?
Thank you, Crystal. I think, in terms of timeline, we make sure that the program, it is spread across the school year. And during the school year, there are many holidays, Jewish as well as Islamic, Muslim holidays. And then there's so much that the students have to do in terms of testing. And then we have spring break and winter break and all these different breaks. So I wouldn't say it's challenging, but because we have been doing it for so many years, we have been able to spread the program across the entire school year. So the kids are, if they start in October or November, they are looking forward for the next session and the next session, because it takes some time before they get to the next session. In the way that the program is designed, as Paul mentioned, the curiosity is always there. What is next, and how when we come the next time, we are going to a school, or we are going to the synagogue, or we are going to the mosque. What are the expectations? And it's not only about the program itself. The kids also look forward to being there and having that meal together. And when they disperse, before dispersing, saying their prayers in Hebrew or in Arabic, and then they leave. So it's something new that they're looking for all the time. And that's what makes the program so interesting.
That's beautiful. What I hear coming out are things like bowling together, sharing food together, curiosity together. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Thank you for the reflections.
Yeah.
All right, I'll put another one out on the table. What kinds of criteria do you use in choosing which personal artifacts and cultural objects to include in the exhibition?
So I'll try to make an answer, and of course, Brother Rafeek, if you want to make an answer as well, of course, I'm absolutely happy to share with you. So we ask the students to, and we ask the teachers to guide the students to find something that reflects their Jewish heritage or their Muslim heritage. If it can reflect the family heritage as well, an artifact that's been passed down through the generations, that's good. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. Some of the artifacts are only, 1 or 2 generations. But mostly the students bring in things that are important to them or important to their families, and therefore they're kind of telling about the about their lives. Sometimes the students bring in things. For example, I think this year we had a coconut grater that one of the students brought in. But the students will often bring in, for example, beautiful prayer rugs or Sidurian prayer books. Um, uh, and the thing is that all of them can talk about these artifacts and why it's important to them, and that's actually pretty inspiring. So I don't know, Brother Rafeek, do you have anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I think what Paul said in terms of the we look at the heritage, Jewish heritage, Muslim heritage, and family relationship. How does this or why is it important to your family? And uh, they are very uh, the students, whatever they bring, like they're able to articulate and say why this is so important to me. Um, uh, just at the last event, one of the council member, he was asking one of the students, she had a prayer rug. um, I see her in school every day, but I didn't know that she was not shy and that she was able to articulate in that way. And she explained to him what that prayer rug really means and why it's being hung on the wall and what is it that is written on it. And basically, it was three surahs from the Quran, and she says that every night before she goes to bed, she reads them. And when she gets up in the morning, she reads them. And we believe that those verses or those surahs, they are like a protection from evil. And when you read them at night, you have a comfortable sleep. That's the type of belief that comes with it. And I was really amazed at the explanation that she gave, and she wasn't shy. She was very uh, well, equipped in terms of this is what I brought and I can explain it and I know what it means to me. So I agree with Paul in that they just didn't bring things and put it there and they were not able to say what it really means to them.
If I could just add a little bit to what Brother Rafeek just said. Um, we also encourage the students on the session where the students bring in their artifacts, we have them write up a label. We take pictures of all the artifacts and we have them write a paragraph or 2 paragraphs about the artifact and what it means to them. And some of the students already know and are able to write very well, and some of them need to think about it more and need more encouragement. And what we've done is if a student writes a label that could use more help, we often send it back to the teacher and ask the teacher to work with the students. Or if we see it in the session that we're there, we'll work with the student. But we really do encourage them to think about the artifacts and to be able to share them and ask their parents too, which the students do. And I would also like to add that the parents also get engaged because they see that these things that are important to their family are also being shared. And I think that's actually a really nice side benefit of the program.
And Crystal, some of these things that they bring, it goes back to generations. It's not just uh, this was passed down to me by my grandfather, but you're talking about great, great, great grandparents. So it goes back a long way.
It's really beautiful. As an educator, I can just imagine the pride and just the agency that students feel being able to share things that are so important to them. Ooh, this is a good one. How do you prepare and train the students to serve as curators, presenting their artifacts?
So, Brother Rafeek, do you want to make a stab, or would you prefer that I make a stab at it?
I think you can start since you are, you're physically in a museum.
Okay, fair. Thank you. So there's a few things that we do. So one of the reasons we take them to the Museum of Jewish Heritage and we take them to the Met is we really want them to see artifacts that are on display in galleries with labels. We want them to read the labels. We want them to study. In fact, what the students do is both here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage and at the Met, we bring clipboards and worksheets and pencils, and the students, they break up into pairs or into groups of three, and Jewish students and Muslim students, and they look at the artifacts and they discuss them and they think about the objective qualities of that artifact, what it's made out of, what its size is, what's possibly its weight, its color, but then also what's the story behind the artifact? What was it used for? Why is it important? Why did somebody think it should be preserved? So we really want them to be thinking about those things here at the Museum of Jewish Heritage or at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So then when they talk to their parents about using an artifact from their families, they're already thinking about what an artifact is, how it can be used, how it can be explained, how it can convey culture. And as mentioned just a moment ago, we have them write them up. We have them write a label for each artifact that they bring in, and we encourage them to write, as much as is appropriate, but to write something substantial about that artifact.
And I think they learn from each other, and not only at the museum. It's like the Jewish Museum of Heritage and or the Met. They from their sessions together, they learn from each other as to how they can be better in terms of being curators. And we have seen in those 19 years that some of them they came to school with one artifact and didn't have enough to say about it, or there wasn't enough information, and maybe their parents couldn't tell them much about it, so they changed it and brought something else. So because now they're able to really talk about what they have brought. And I think that working together, this has helped them also in being excellent curators.
I just actually would like to just to second what Rafeek said about that to be able to talk to somebody else from a different culture and explain your culture or this artifact from your culture to somebody else, it really takes some effort and some thought, and that means that they're really thinking more deeply about their own culture. And at the same time, hopefully, as they hear about the other culture, that makes them think as well, and hopefully appreciate the other person's culture as well as their own culture.
That's beautiful. And I'm reflecting on at the very beginning, you'd mentioned that you prioritize icebreakers and things that are creating spaces where folks feel open to be able to have those kinds of discussions. So I appreciate the work that's happening before you get to curator training, to build the spaces for those conversations. What have been some of the most powerful or eye-opening moments you've witnessed during the cross-cultural exchange aspects of this program?
All right, Brother Rafeek, it's your turn to start.
Okay. I think I was telling Paul, actually, I spoke to a parent as I was about to board the bus to get back to school on uh, the day of our exhibition, and I was telling the parent about it's not just the similarities in our faith, but the values that we share, and sometimes when you look at the kids, um, you're not looking at a Jewish kid and a Muslim kid. You're looking at the creation of God, in that these are all children who are the creation of the one supreme being, and there are so many similarities in terms of their behavior. So I was telling this parent that there was once in one of the years in our programs, there were two girls, one Jewish, one Muslim, and talking to their parents, they had a great bond, the two of them. And talking to their parents, the parents saw so many similarities in terms of their eating habits, in terms of the way they speak, in terms of their posture. So the mother who I was speaking to, she said, it seems like they were sisters. That's how close it was. And those are the things that make you so happy, when you can bring people from different faith, different belief, different cultures, and you can find so much similarities between them. Um, it- there, there was today I asked one of the student, did your friend call you? Because there was a, a kid from the one of the Jewish school who was, very close to one of the students here at Allison. And before leaving, the student from the Jewish school, her name is, maybe we don't need to mention names now, but she asked for, do you have WhatsApp? Or do you have a number that I can reach you, because this is our last day? So they shared numbers. So I asked the student today, I said, did your friend call you? She said, yes, she called and we spoke. So it wasn't just taking the number and say, well, I just have your phone number with me, but they made that connection. And those are the things that really bring some joy and happiness to you, to know that you're making a difference in the lives of these kids, that they're looking beyond what we see in the world today, that they know that um, in some way that they can coexist and they can share love and compassion and empathy for one another.
Yeah, that's very, very very beautifully put. And I would again echo what Brother Rafeek said. Many times I've had students actually from the Ihsan Academy come up to me during our exhibition. Not the students who are participating in the program, but the older brothers and sisters of the students who participated in the program 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and tell me how important it was and how meaningful it was, and how it really changed their life or changed their outlook. And if we can do that, and make this kinds of bonds that Brother Rafeek just talked about, then I think we're doing an amazing thing, really an amazing thing.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing the mechanisms of that relationship building, right? Like I keep echoing the icebreakers, the sharing food, the giving students the autonomy and the space to be able to share their culture and be the curators of their backgrounds. So I really appreciate you articulating all of this. Are there any artifacts or cultural objects that have sparked particularly insightful discussions or realizations among the students?
Um, I'll try to start. Um, uh, I think the fact that both Islam, and Judaism are religions that are focused on texts and based on texts, means that there's already this important common bond between the Jewish students and the Muslim students. And I know that when we go to the Met and we see those beautiful Qurans that are stellar, that I think that gets them to think about what does it mean to be connected with a tradition with a text, a sense of ongoing chain of holiness. Those for sure, I think, spark insightful discussions. Certainly they have for me. Brother Rafeek probably has other things that he could add as well.
Yeah, I think the religious text, it really make them understand when they look at the Quran or the Torah, and these are being displayed as artifacts, and some of the religious symbols, they become a little more curious as to want to know what it's all about. I saw Paul, I don't know if you remember when we were at Alison and they were writing labels for their artifacts. There were some of the Jewish children, students who were displaying, I don't know the name of it, but the horn.
Oh, the shofar.
It's a shofar. And uh, all the kids were excited to listen to him, do that echo. And he was so happy to do it that it brought some joy and happiness to him. He is teaching people about his faith and what it means to him. So I think the religious artifacts, whether it's in terms of the books or in terms of the symbols, they build some sort of curiosity in the kids. And then they not only them, the parents who are there want to know about it. And then they talk about, there's so much things similar between us in terms of the prophets, in terms of the revealed scriptures, in terms of our values, in terms of our belief system. So I think these artifacts help greatly in making a difference in the program itself.
Well, I would just add that the artifacts, they're in a way a vehicle for the discussion. The discussion of what does it mean to be Jewish, or what does it mean to be Muslim, and what's the nature, what are the customs of the religion. I know that we didn't talk about that much this year, but we always talk about Ramadan, for example, which is always has at least as long as I've been doing the program, has fallen during the program. Or we talk about Passover, or like, Brother Rafeek just said, talk about the shofar. So I think those artifacts, those religious artifacts, because it's also something that kids can relate to. The Jewish kids pray, the Muslim kids pray. The prayer are similar and different. When we go to the synagogue and mosque, all of the kids find those really interesting, because both the synagogue and mosque are both similar and a little different, depending on where you're at. But that's always been a very exciting session too. Because it's also an easy way to see some of the similarities and differences very clearly. I don't know if that answered the question, but I hope so.
No, I had a big realization because you were mentioning the artifacts and these objects, and I just thought back to being in school, and the best day at school is show and tell, right? Or as an adult, like, I just came back from this place and here's the thing that I have. And I appreciate the articulation of the objects being able to illustrate and share and be a conduit for the conversation.
And like
That's really, yeah.
like Paul said, even though the mosque and the synagogue, they're not artifacts as such, but they're symbols of the faith. The kids were always looking forward to that, to visit the mosque, to see how Muslims pray, and to visit the synagogue and to listen to the rabbi talking to them about Judaism and the religion itself. So in these places, they were not just going and visiting, but they had a rabbi and an imam speak to them and talk talk to them about the religion itself and what the religion teaches. And sometimes, when you look at what the rabbi says and what the imam says, it's all about, religion is all about peace, love, and making sure that you love for people that which you love for yourself. That's the focus, and the kids walk away with that. So they tend to build or foster a better relationship. That's why I said that they would look forward to the next session and the next session, because now they're bonding based on what was said to them.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And we actually, as evidence of that, uh, during the 3 speeches that were given by the students at the final exhibition, um, they all mentioned what they learned and what they heard, especially from you, Brother Rafeek, about your talk that we had after we went bowling. But the Muslim students, I think, learned as well
Yeah.
from the Jewish students. So I think that part is very important, definitely.
Thank you for that extra explanation. And this is really incredible. I hope folks are enjoying out there, because I am having a blast. Even though it's closer to the end of the day, this is really great. So now, we've got some questions about some of the things that are a little bit harder. What have been the biggest logistical or cultural challenges in coordinating a program of this nature?
So if I could jump in on this, at least start to answer the question. So as actually Brother Rafeek mentioned earlier, navigating 3 or 4 different calendars. So as many schools as we have, there's a different calendar. And then of course there's the Muslim calendar and the Jewish calendar. We want to make sure that we're not we can't have a session on any of the holidays. We don't have sessions during Ramadan because the students only go for a half day. The schools, like Brother Rafeek mentioned, have regents or other testing that they do. So dealing with the calendar is really a challenge, and then of course finding the venue. So we mentioned that the first one's here, the second one's at the Met, but then finding appropriate place. I'll tell you, this year we had been going for many years to the Kips Bay Boys and Girls Club for our social day, which very wonderfully had welcomed us as a group, and provided a wonderful experience for the students. They're renovating the building this year, so they were not available. So then we looked. Our second choice was to go bowling, and our first choices for bowling alleys were not available. We ended up finding one that was fine. It was absolutely fine, but that was a challenge. I don't know now if you'd like to, Brother Rafeek, if there's anything you'd like to add.
I think because the program has evolved over the years, we have been able to overcome any sort of the unexpected challenges or things that we think might be posed as a challenge. And I would say that culturally, the in terms of visiting or making it happen at different locations, it's we really didn't have any sort of a challenge, because like the Jewish children would love to see a Muslim school, and the Muslim kids would love to see, go to another location where they're seeing a Jewish school. And the same thing with when you look at culture in terms of the mosque and the synagogue. Many Muslim kids never had the opportunity to go into a synagogue. So from this program, they're able to be there and visit a synagogue and see what a synagogue looks like, and then they compare a mosque and a synagogue. And the Jewish children, they do the same thing, because and not so often people go to a mosque to see how others, they make ablution before they pray, and they stand up for prayers, and the way that they pray. I remember some of the kids years ago, they would talk about how inspired they were when they saw the Muslims and the prayers, how they make the prayers. I think there has been, instead of difficulties and challenges, there has been more ease, and Paul has made this possible in terms of our kids don't have to use yellow school buses. They use coaches, and they ride in style.
Well, I thank you. I wanted to also add, actually, as you were speaking, Brother Rafeek. So in the Jewish tradition, and I think, and I suspect in the Muslim tradition as well, Abraham or Ibrahim is seen as among his many great qualities is that he was very much hospitable, that he brought people in and he cared for people, and this is something that is absolutely the case at the Ihsan Academy. And I think it's also the case in the Jewish schools as well, that the teachers, the principal, the administration, they want people to feel comfortable. They want them to feel welcome. When I go to Ihsan, I don't have to wait more than like 5 minutes before one of the teachers says, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" They know me. They know like I want a cup of coffee. Um, uh, and actually, this is one of those cultural things that actually helps things along. That both our traditions really value the importance of hospitality, and it's actually a very beautiful thing.
True. I think what has made it not a challenge too is that these students, they just have to present themselves to say, well, we are in the program, and uh, they're fortunate that everything is taken care of for them. Those 7 times that they meet, or 6 times, they don't have to think about lunch. Lunch is always there for them, and they have what they love in terms of pizza and pasta and these type of things. So, Crystal, I think if you were looking for challenges, we didn't really experience any sort of big hiccups or challenges in the program for the last 19 years that we have been doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really fortunate too that the people that we've worked with, that I've worked with, have been really wonderful people. So, certainly Brother Rafeek and his staff at Al Ihsan and the other schools that I've worked with. Currently, we're working with Kinneret Day School and with and the Schechter School of Manhattan. Really lovely, warm people, and I agree with Brother Rafeek that it's not, they're not challenges. It's really like blessings.
All right. So that's what 19 years will do. You've got the logistics down, which will also make you experts in this next question. These years and years of experience, I think, really are going to position you both to be able to share some beautiful insights here. How do you address controversial or sensitive topics that may arise when discussing aspects of the Muslim and Jewish faiths?
So, Brother Rafeek, you wanna go first?
I think I would say that we are dealing with students who are in fifth grade, and the focus of the program is more to show similarities, commonalities, to teach them about religious beliefs and values. And we try to um, stay away from things that are controversial. But at the same time, if there is a controversial issue, um, I think in both Judaism and Islam, you have differences of opinions. The scholars differ, and we look for to take a moderate approach instead of taking an extremist approach to any type of issues that may arise. But in the program itself, over the years, we have found that we haven't been faced with, these type of controversial issues. Um, for example, I, I know that currently, we do have a situation, in the Middle East, in Palestine, in Gaza, in Israel. The whole world is talking about it. But these kids, they have met over the last year, and they try to stay focused on their program itself. Yes, they would show their empathy. They would say that we wish that this wasn't happening, that people are losing their lives, innocent people are losing their lives, but they just try to stay focused on their program. And I think that's what we have experienced over the years. Even in talking to Paul, or in talking to the parents who came to the program, I try my best to make sure that we do what would benefit the kids, because this is a teaching opportunity for them, and we want them to benefit from what we are doing for them, instead of making them now have some concern about the other, or looking at the other in a different way. We want them to maintain that good relationship, that yes, in the world that we live in, you have um, people who have different opinions, religiously, or in terms of their values. They have different opinions, and we can't please everyone. And so let's look at it that they're good people and they're bad people, and let's continue to be the good people and make a difference in the world.
Yeah, no, that's very beautiful, very beautifully. I did what Rafeek said, and I would just add also, and I think I think Rafeek also said, I'll just repeat it though, is that we really try to be empathetic, that we really want that the students should look at one another and their families and the schools that with empathy, with friendship and with warmth. And I hope that what we're building in terms of this kind of community between the students and the schools, something that will transcend whatever problems are going on in the Middle East. That this is something, this positive energy that we're building, this positive relationships that we're building, this is something that I hope will last for a long time. But exactly as Brother Rafeek said, I mean, to focus on the positive and focus on the task at hand, I think is very important.
No, and I appreciate you both and your willingness to come here and have this conversation, and share this information with other folks right now. I really do appreciate it. Just have a few more questions. We may not get to all of them, but we're going to try. How do you measure the program's success in building understanding and connections between students?
So I can make a stab at this. Um, so we do have evaluation forums that I haven't had a chance to review yet, but that the students have completed. Um, but I would say so far it's really been more anecdotal, and this is when I hear from the older brothers and sisters of the current cohort of the participating students about how it was important, how it spoke to them. Last year at the exhibition, a young man came up to me and he said, "Don't you, Dr. Radensky, don't you remember me? I was in the interfaith program, 10 years ago, and my little brother is participating this year." And we took a picture together, and he mentioned how it was so moving for him. So, you know, I hear that from a lot of students that it really impacted them, and the schools are all eager to participate. The schools that we've been working with. So it is anecdotal, but my sense is that it has made a difference in the lives of the students and in the lives of the schools, really.
And like I said, about those girls and the relationship that they built with each other, that's in itself tells you what impact the program has had on the children. I met a father last year, and he was telling me about his children, and he has three children who benefit from the program. So when the first one joined the program, he said he was a little reluctant um, because he didn't know what to expect, and he knows another one is coming to fifth grade the next year. So he after the first one went through the program, he was just waiting for the second one to get into fifth grade so that that one can also benefit from the program. And then I saw him a few days ago at the exhibition, and he said, "This is my third one. And I want you guys to continue doing what you're doing because you're making a great impact on these children. The what is being taught to them, and the way that they have been able to build this relationship and stay together. You don't find it so often in the world, where people from different cultures, different faith, they can come together, and they can show that they can coexist. They can be together in this friendly atmosphere. Um, so he was all excited, and I think that tells you, this is a parent telling you that I just didn't have one of them in the program. I had three of them, and if I have more, I'll have them continue with this program, and I'll encourage others to do likewise.
Yeah, no, and I think I've heard similar things from um, certainly from other parents that have had multiple children in the program, which is also one of the nice things about it, is to get to know for me anyway, to get to know the children over the you know the different generations of the children.
That's beautiful. We're going to have to figure out how to replicate to
You know,
multiple schools and different communities.
we have had like Paul said, we have had alumni who when they hear about the program, and when it's happening, some of them they try to have time on their schedule so that they can participate. If it's here at Ihsan, or it's at the museum, or some of the other schools, they look to see, if the teacher calls upon them, how can I be of help? I'll come, because now I have learned so much from my experience, and now I can pass this on to the younger ones. This is how they look at it. And I had one of the girls, Paul, that went to the program many years ago. She graduated high school here, but she's married now, and she came to the program this year. So she came back one day to school, and she was doing an evaluation, comparing her time and this time.
Wow.
So, that's how much the students have been into the program, and I think it has impacted their lives.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's wonderful having her as part of the program this year, actually. Really nice.
I wonder, as our last question, because we only have a few minutes left, for educators interested in launching a similar initiative, what advice would you give in getting outside support or starting like where you were 19 years ago?
Well, I could say maybe a word or two, a word or two about this. So I guess it depends, what kind of context that you're doing it in. So for those people who are in, religiously oriented schools like Jewish schools or Muslim schools, then the question is really finding, a partner school to work with. And we've been really, really lucky. I've been really lucky to have Jewish schools that want to do the program, and and Muslim schools that want to do the program. So that's been great. I mean, not everybody is comfortable doing a program like this. So finding a good match is important. I would say if you're talking about Jewish schools or Muslim schools or some other kind of religiously oriented school. But you know what, a program like this could also be done in a public school setting where there's a diverse group of students, right? Different religions are represented, different cultures are represented, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that you have a school coming from the outside. You could even have in a classroom, for example, or a couple of classes, you could have the kids come together. They could go to different places, figure out, which kinds of cultural institutions represent the kids. So for example, if they're Jewish kids, they could come here or another Jewish museum, or if they're Muslim kids, they could go to the Met or another place that has Muslim, artifacts or whatever. There are other culturally based museums, and I would use that as kind of a starting off point, a jumping off point. And then again, have the kids bring in their artifacts, have them talk to their parents before they do, so they have what to share, and then make a catalog like we've done, and an exhibition. And I could list out the various steps like we did in the beginning of our discussion today, but I think it's pretty doable. And in fact, this program, the Living Museum, this is something that we've been doing even before the Interfaith program that we did with a lot of Jewish schools, but there are other schools have done it as well. And we didn't need to bring in different schools. We could just do it even with one school, because one school will have diversity as well, and with that diversity, people can learn from one another. I mean, listen, even if it's a school that is a Jewish school or a Muslim school, even within that population, there's going to be diversity. And that's the thing, is that people can learn from one another.
I think too that if it's one school, like Paul said, and you have that diversity in the school, then you can focus on maybe something on religion. The problem is that um, uh, that might be taboo for some maybe public school, but in a private school, like here at Allison, we have what we call a multicultural day every year. So we have kids from all parts of the world, and they would um, on that multicultural day, we'll ask them to, wear clothing of their ancestors or the country that their ancestors came from. They'll bring food from these countries. They would, they would have some play or something as a demonstration of what the country is all about. So in a school setting, if it's instead of looking at it from that aspect, maybe they can look at it from a religious aspect, bring in artifacts from your culture or your religion, and start. That's like a starting point. I know that we also did this with we had this dialogue with some of the Catholic schools. There was someone who, like Paul, was very interested in making sure that there was some dialogue between Muslims and Christians, and to show what Christianity stands for and what Islam stands for. So he came one day to the school and he asked to meet with me. We sat down and we put a program together. So we had our high school students. It wasn't the whole school, but we just took about 5, 6 students and sent them to the Catholic high schools, and they were talking there about Islam and what it means to them. And then the students who were in the Catholic schools, they were talking about Christianity and what it means to them. And they came a few times here. They had lunch together. So it was like at a different level. It wasn't the 7 times that we meet, but one time. But it had an impact, because after several years, one of the principals came back and he asked me. He said, I heard that your school used to work with our Catholic schools, and someone gave me this contact. Are you willing to do it again? So I said, no problem. It's short notice, but we still send some of our students. They had an event, and they wanted some representation from Muslim students. So we sent the students, and they were asked a lot of questions, and it was a successful event. So I think there is always room for students to be given this opportunity to talk about their culture, their values, their faith, and it does make a difference, because at the end of the day, if people are religiously oriented, whether they are students, whether they're kids, whether they're adults, if they're religiously oriented, they would always gravitate towards that, towards creating a peaceful atmosphere, a peaceful environment, because that's what religion teaches us. If we look at Islam, and we tell our, our students, and as an imam, going into the mosque and delivering the khutbah or the sermon on Fridays, you tell people that you can't pray and have, hatred in your hearts for others. You can't pray and not have that love and compassion for others. Because your prayers teach you that. Your charitable acts teach you that. The fasting in the month of Ramadan teaches you to be a good person. So if you are not practicing those values, or you don't exhibit good behavior, then something is wrong with your prayers, and something is wrong with your fasting, and something is wrong with your pilgrimage. So that's how we look at it. That
Thank
if
you. Yeah.
if you try to make sure that people understand religion and what it means to them, then you will have a peaceful world instead of the world that we are existing in right now.
Thank you, Dr. Mohamed. And I want to recognize that we are 2 minutes over time, and my teacher person, I want to make sure we get the educators on their way. It was a gift to be present here with both of you. We got some really great suggestions in the questions for follow-up that I'm excited to share with both of you for, templates and outlines that we can share with educators. I also want to drop in the chat for anybody who needs CTLE hours, that we've got our feedback form and then also that CTLE sign up so that I can make sure I get those certificates out to you folks. If there are any questions that are out there that weren't typed into the chat or shared with me, feel free to email them and I will follow up and have them sent back to you. And there's my email. Really a gift to learn more about the program right after seeing the kind of culminating event earlier this week. It's really wonderful. And thank you both for your time and your willingness to share.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, brother Rafeek.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Crystal, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah.
Me too.
Have a great